Okay, let me make sure I'm checking this process. What else do I have to do? Need to go get some people on here with us. At followers. That's still not working. We will get started in just a minute, guys. I'm just making sure I'm doing everything that I need to do before so we can get some people on here with us. We can get some interaction going. I need to share to our Facebook group. Taking a minute. There it goes. Okay, posted in the Facebook group. Now let me go get some people from over there. Megan's already on. I can see her loving the post already.
She's quick.
I know. Well, I know I get a notification when we start to go live, so she probably gets the same one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are good. We have everything going. Let me open up my Zoom so you guys can see me, so Peyton can see me. Or I guess I can see y'all. Y'all could probably see me fine the whole time. I'm Danielle. This is Peyton. We are a part of Leslie's team. She is at a conference this week. I don't know which one. She's been doing a lot of continuing education lately, so lots of traveling and stuff. So we've just been kind of picking up the trainings over different topics that she's been posting, things like that. So today we're just going to kind of talk about what it looks like and how to determine if you have an ideal team and how to get an ideal team, things to check before, you know, knocking it as like a people problem, you know, like this team member is just not a good fit or whatever. So when you're first thinking about hiring a team, we always recommend having your systems in place and processes in place, because if you hire somebody without that, they're not going to know what they're supposed to be doing, even if they do have the skill for the job that you're hiring, right? Or if they don't have the skill, even worse. Like I didn't have any experience in this industry whenever I started, and we did not have either of the two things, system or processes. So it was a lot of, Lynn, how do I do this? Or Lynn, how do I do that? And I know same experience with Peyton. And Alyssa, I know you guys have heard us talk about many times before, her onboarding experience is very, very different than mine, Peyton, Chelsea, Megan's, you know, because we did have that stuff in place. We learned the hard way that those things need to be in place before you hire, because you can hire for skill. I have a client, she hired somebody who has the skill, but the system is kind of in place. Like they have ClickUp, but it's not fully implemented the right way and it's not easy to follow. So her team member that she hired is still struggling with knowing what to do. And then the process was like halfway done on most of the things. So she was still struggling with how to do it. Like I had a coaching call with her on Tuesday and she was like, a lot of this stuff has started, but it's not finished. So she's like, I don't really know where to go from here and stuff like that. She's just kind of struggling with following the person that was in the role before her. So when we say, how do we tell people to think about how they want to hire, right? Do you want to hire for skill or do you want to hire for personality? So hiring for skill obviously is somebody who has experience, but you have to keep in mind that the way one person does something is not the way this other person is going to do it. So just because you're in the same industry doesn't mean your workflows and everything are going to be the same. And then hiring for personality, obviously you want to make sure that they have a good personality that's going to fit with your already existing team. If you have one, or if you don't, they're going to have a good personality that fits with you. Or you know, the integrity aspects of it, stuff like that, because you can always teach skill, you can't teach personality. And some of our clients have had to figure that out the hard way, that they tried to force this person into a role because they had the skills to get the job done, when in reality their personality didn't fit. And at that point it just became like a people problem, you know. So the other thing that we talk about is keeping the culture in place, right? So as an owner or as a leader, or if you're in a leadership role in your firm, you all, not just leaders, everybody plays a role in maintaining culture, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can do this, and a lot of owners don't realize that sometimes they're the problem because they're not leading and they're
They're
not
in
doing,
their own way too.
yeah, they're
Like they're
not
standing in
doing
their own way.
things the way they want it done. Like we've had clients that are like, I want you to use task management. I want you to use task management, but they don't think they have to do it, right? So what does that say to your team if you're preaching to use task management, but you're not even using it, right? Um, and being a leader doesn't just go, obviously everybody hears like the lead by example conversation or whatever it is, but it's not just that. It's like knowing your team, right? Like Lynn and Leslie know all of us personably wise. I don't even know if that's a word, but like they know how we operate, I guess you would say. They know our personalities, they know how we're going to react to things, they know how we work, what roles we best fit in, and they use that to their advantage, right? To the firm's advantage, not just theirs. And they make sure that we're all in roles that we're going to do well in, instead of like forcing a square peg into a round hole. You know what I mean? Like Megan, when she first started, she was doing admin work and then she started doing bookkeeping, but she hated it. So we realized that we had to make a change and put her in a role that she actually enjoyed, or she wasn't going to be there. She wasn't going to try her best at what she was doing because she didn't enjoy it. So now that she's in marketing, she loves marketing, and she does really good at it. And then same thing for the rest of us. We've kind of just like figured out what we enjoy doing, and then we do better at it, right? Like if you don't enjoy something, you're not going to try your best, I guess you would say. Do you have anything to add to any of what I just said, Peyton?
Um, you pretty much touched on all of it, but I think the main thing is definitely finding out what your team enjoys, like you said, and not just forcing them into a role that they don't necessarily love. Because then they're not going to grow. They're just going to stay stagnant. They're going to get bored with it. So there has to be like some good challenges, but also something that they enjoy, like you said.
Yeah. And I also think too, like you obviously hire team members for a certain role, right? Like you're hiring them to do a certain thing. And yes, like get them to understand and know how to do that certain thing. Like we didn't just move roles. Oh, Megan's not good at this. Let's switch her to something else. It wasn't like that. She was doing bookkeeping for a very long time, and she still does have to do bookkeeping whenever we need help. You know what I mean? Like I don't really do bookkeeping a whole lot, but I've done 3 monthlies this week because another team member needs help, right?
You had to
Um,
rely heavily on that process, right? Because you haven't been in it for so long.
yeah, I will say the one that I did on Tuesday, I really had to make sure I was doing everything. It's a nonprofit that we have, and they're one of our more complex clients. And it used to be one of my clients. I know
Mhm.
how to do it. It's just I haven't done it in so long that when I was doing it, I was really having to rely heavily on the checklist, specifically in our task
Mhm.
management system. And then I even had to check the process a couple times to see like what accounts she had restricted and which ones weren't restricted. So, and then without that, I would have had to ask our team member, hey, is this restricted? Interrupt her from
Mhm.
the cleanup that she was working on. So, yeah, they definitely come in handy, even if you do have the experience. And
Because
like I was
things change
saying,
with clients all the
yeah,
time. She could have added and removed things. She could have changed, it's been a long time. So those things are definitely key to, making sure you have in the process.
yeah, and that client specifically, her restricted accounts or her restricted fundraisers, stuff like that, they do change very often. So that definitely has to be kept up with. And like I was saying, like just because we are in these different roles now doesn't necessarily mean we can't help. We can't still contribute to the role we were hired for originally, right? Like I'm not saying hire somebody for a bookkeeping role and then if they're not good at it, then automatically switch them in like 3 weeks. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is everybody reaches like the tip of their S curve, right? Like they've mastered the role that they're in, and then they become, like Peyton said, stagnant in it, and they get bored and they're just kind of going through the motions and not really paying attention. Even if there is a process and a checklist, they get bored with it. So then you got to put them into a different, not necessarily role, but give them something a little bit more challenging. So like I moved from doing the bookkeeping, and then my next challenging thing was to review the bookkeeping for other team members. And I stayed in that role for a while too. And then eventually it was taxes and coaching and sales now. But there's always room to level up your team. They don't have to stay in the role that you hired them in forever, right? Everybody wants to grow, or at least you should have team members, ideal team members for our firm have a growth mindset. Like they want
Yes.
to learn more, they want things more challenging, they want to be able to contribute more to the firm, not just do a doer all the time. So I
Mhm.
think that's really important too as a leader, is to determine when someone is at the top of that S curve, you know, um, because I know we've all in our firm hit that quite often.
Mhm.
And then listening to your team, allowing your team to give you constructive criticism, feedback. You can't be like stuck in the mindset of this is my firm, this is the way I want it done. You have to be able to make changes too, I think is really important
Mhm.
as a leader.
Like with Lynn and Leslie, like they don't even refer to the firm as their firm. They're like our, like this is our business, our firm. So I think that that's really important too, making sure that you can have those open conversations with the people that you're hiring, because you all should have the same goal for your business, and it should just
Yeah, you cut out there for a minute.
sorry. I thought it was you because like you just froze.
No, I can see you now. But yeah, and
Okay, good.
how many times do they ask for like our feedback too, right? Like they're not just like, this is what we're doing, you're either on the bus or you're not. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there's certain things depending on what the topic is. Like we're writing processes, you're either going to write them or you're not. That's a no-brainer for us. But like if we're making big firm changes, how many times do they ask us, what do you guys think about this? Are you all committed? Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, they ask that all the time, and if we aren't, like, quick to speak up, they're like they will call on us. "Tell us
Hmm.
what you think." Like, everybody's input and feedback is needed and taken into consideration, so and all of us have different things to say about it, whatever it is most of the time. We're all for whatever the plan is because we've all got that same end goal for the
Yeah.
firm. But for a while, it took me a little bit to, like, speak up on it. They're like, "Peyton, what do you think?" I'm like, "Just here. I don't know." I was scared to give, like, feedback. Um, but over time, I eventually, opened up a little bit more because, I would be called on it really, but
Hmm. And I think
I
you
know
touched
it's
on the good
important.
thing too, knowing the end goal. If we didn't know where we were trying to take the firm as a whole, we wouldn't know what we're working towards, right? Like we wouldn't know what the point of doing all of this is, I guess. So that goes back to being a good leader. You have to share those things with your team, your vision, your mission, your whatever you want to call it. Um,
And it
they
can
have to,
change.
yeah, it changes. To know what you're like, it's not just one thing that you share one time and then it's the same for the next 10 years. Like I've been with the firm 7 8, I don't know how many years, a long time, but ours has changed over the years and it's not always going to stay the same. I'm sure it's going to change many more times in the future,
Mhm.
and I think continuously having that conversation of these are our 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals, plans, whatever is important as a leader too, because if you're just saying, I want to serve all small businesses and keep their business open, okay, that's what you're wanting to do for other people, and that's not a good thing anyways, like a good goal, I should say. You need to break it down more than that and kind of see how everybody feels about it, if they agree with where you're trying to take the firm and stuff like that. We have those conversations, I feel like, all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially like whenever it comes to like pivoting, like if something comes up and it's like, oh, this was our goal, it's easy for us to like pivot as long as they're communicating with us, which they're fabulous at doing that. And I mean, our communication is really good. um but it's okay to have to pivot in your business, but make sure to include your team in that as well. Like, this is what's going on. This is still our end goal, but right now we're having to pivot and kind of go in this direction, and we will circle back around. So that's definitely huge as far as communication goes, so everybody can remain on the same path.
Yeah, and we communicate mostly through ClickUp. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, discussions like that we do have a weekly team meeting every Wednesday where we all meet and we kind of do these check-ins to see where everybody's at, what their challenges are, what their wins are. Not just business, but personally too, because as much as people like to say leave business or personal at the door, it's not a thing, right? Let's be real. Um, so I think that's really important that you touch on communication too, because before we had ClickUp, that's just what we use. Task management is task management. We don't care what you use as long as you use it. And as long as it works. We used Slack before, and it would get like kind of confusing because not everybody would see the messages or whatever, and stuff would get lost in like translation. So ClickUp has been really good about that, because if we need to have discussions about stuff like that, Leslie and Lynn, they'll just make a task and they'll add us all to it, and they're going to be like, hey, we're going to discuss this at our team meeting, so things like that don't get forgotten about.
Mhm.
And that goes back to having the right system in place. You're always going to hear us say it's either a system, process, leadership, or person problem. So kind of wrapping all of this up, what we mean by that is, again, if you don't have the right systems, your team isn't going to know what to do. So that is a system problem. If you don't have processes telling you how to do things, obviously they're not going to do it the right way. They're going to make mistakes, all of the things. Um, Leadership, we touched a lot on leadership in this one. If you're not being a good leader and guiding your team into into roles and sharing things and visions and everything like that, you're failing as an owner and as a leader, because you're setting them up for failure, right? If they don't know all of these things, that's not their fault. I guess it's not to anybody's fault, I should say. It's more or less like you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Mhm.
then a people problem, I mean, that's kind of just, sometimes you get a bad apple or a bad rotten apple and a bunch of them or whatever. Um, what is apples? An apple tree, I guess, but it's not like a bunch of apples. I don't know. Sometimes you get a bad apple, and I mean, it is what it is. You win some, you lose some, and you can't really, if you're doing everything you're supposed to do on your end, that should be like the last conclusion that you come to. Oh, this isn't a good person. If you have the systems, if you have the processes, if you're being a good leader and sharing all of the things, then you will find out it's a people problem. And we have some people that run into that, and we have some that don't. But we don't always want you to assume that it's the person in the role automatically. Check everything off your boxes first, and then you kind of get to that point, right? Um, Peyton, do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. It was a good little chat. I feel like we could talk on this forever.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So if you guys are interested in anything we discussed today, drop a comment below. We'll also put the link and how to contact us. We do coach on all of these things. And we love obviously coaching on a lot of it, especially the leadership part and the task management. I love processes. So like I said, if you have any questions or you're interested in learning more, drop it below and someone on our team will reach out to you. And if not, we will see you next week. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
y'all.